The thing about revenge is that it tastes better when served with a smile. That's what I kept telling myself as I sat at the head of the table in LeBlanc, surrounded by the people I thought I could trust most in the world. My name is Andrea, and this was supposed to be my 36th birthday dinner. The crystal glasses caught the light just so, making the expensive champagne sparkle like tiny stars. My husband René's hand rested possessively on my shoulder as he raised his glass. "To my beautiful wife," he said, his voice carrying that hint of charm that once made me weak in the knees. "Happy birthday, darling." My sister Rose shifted in her seat, her perfectly manicured fingers fidgeting with her water glass. She hadn't touched her champagne, which should have been my first clue if I hadn't already known what was coming. "Actually," Rose interrupted, just as everyone was about to drink, "I have an announcement to make." My mother Linda beamed, already knowing. Of course she knew. She always knew everything about Rose first. "I'm pregnant!" Rose's voice rang out across the private dining room. The silence that followed lasted exactly 2 seconds before she added the punchline. "And René's the father." I felt René's hand tighten on my shoulder. Not in guilt, but in preparation for my reaction. They all expected hysteria, tears, maybe even a scene. The restaurant staff hovered nervously at the edges of the room. I took a slow sip of my champagne. "That's interesting," I said, my voice steady. "Very interesting indeed." "Andrea," my mother started, her tone already taking that scolding edge she'd perfected over the years. "Don't make a scene." I smiled, reaching for my purse. "Oh, I wouldn't dream of it, Mother. In fact, I have my own announcement to make." I pulled out a cream-colored envelope. "You see, I've been wondering why René and I couldn't conceive for the past 3 years. Rose's triumphant smile faltered slightly. René's hand left my shoulder. "Andrea, this isn't the time," he said quietly, warning in his voice. "Actually, it's the perfect time." I unfolded the medical report with careful precision, because according to Dr. Matthews at the fertility clinic, my dear husband has what they call a zoospermia, 0 sperm count. I looked directly at Rose. In layman's terms, he's completely infertile. The sound of Mary's fork clattering against her plate echoed through the room. Rose's face drained of color so quickly I thought she might faint. That's impossible," she stammered. "The test must be wrong." "That's what I thought too," I said, pulling out a second envelope. So I had him tested again. Different clinic, different doctor. Same result. I smiled at René, who had gone completely still beside me. "Would you like to see the dates, darling? Both tests were from last month. You had me tested without my knowledge?" René's voice shook with anger. "Oh, like you've been so honest with me?" I turned to face him fully. 3 years of trying. 3 years of you telling me maybe I was the problem. 3 years of watching you comfort my sister through her visits while I cried myself to sleep. Linda stood up abruptly. "This is absolutely inappropriate." "No, Mother. What's inappropriate is your precious Rose fucking my husband and then trying to pass off someone else's baby as his." I stood up, gathering my purse. "So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk out of here with my dignity intact. And you two," I looked between Rose and René, "can figure out how to explain to everyone why you lied. That test." René grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. "It was wrong, wasn't it?" I leaned in close enough to smell his cologne. The same cologne I'd smelled on Rose's jacket last month. "Oh no, darling." I double-checked. "Twice." I pulled my arm free. "And I have so much more proof where that came from." As I walked toward the door, Rose's voice cracked behind me. "Andrea, wait. I can explain." I paused at the doorway, turning back one last time. "Save your explanation for your baby's real father, Rose. I'm sure he'd love to hear it." The last thing I saw as I left was Mary pulling out her phone, no doubt already dialing everyone in her considerable social network. By morning, everyone would know, and that was exactly what I wanted. Because revenge isn't just about exposing lies. It's about watching them scramble to piece together a truth they can't possibly explain. And I was just getting started. 6 weeks earlier, I was sitting in my home office when the first real evidence landed in my lap. Not the subtle signs I'd been ignoring, the lingering hugs, the inside jokes, the way Rose's visits always coincided with Renee's work-from-home days. No, this was an actual email, accidentally left open on our shared iPad. "We need to be more careful," Rose had written. "A is getting suspicious." I stared at those words until they burned into my retinas. A, not Andrea, not sister, just A, like I was some obstacle to be managed. The next morning I called Angela. "I need you to meet me for coffee," I said, "and I need you to not ask questions until we're face to face." 20 minutes later, we sat in a corner booth at Cafe Luna, away from prying ears. "Show me again," Angela said, squinting at the email on my phone. This could mean anything, right? "Look at the timestamp, 11:47 p.m. Why is my sister emailing my husband at midnight?" Angela's face hardened. "What are you going to do?" "First, I'm going to visit Dr. Matthews." I stirred my untouched coffee. Remember how Renee insisted on handling all the fertility appointments? How he always came back with vague explanations about keeping trying? You think he was lying about the results? I think I'm done letting other people tell me what's true. Dr. Matthews' office was exactly as I remembered. Sterile, professional, with that faint smell of antiseptic that all medical offices share. The receptionist recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Jensen, we haven't seen you in months." "I need copies of all our test results," I said. "Everything you have on file for both me and my husband." She hesitated. "Usually, Mr. Jensen handles all the paperwork. I'm aware. But as his wife and patient, I have a legal right to access our medical records." I smiled, channeling Rose's sweet manipulation tactics. "Unless there's some reason I shouldn't see them?" 15 minutes later, I sat in my car, hands shaking as I read through the files. My results were normal. Had always been normal. But Renee's, there were no results, no tests, nothing. "He never took them," I told Angela later that day. 3 years of trying, and he never once got tested. "That bastard," Angela whispered. "But why?" "Control," I said simply. As long as we were trying, he had an excuse for everything. My depression? Just hormone treatments. My suspicions? Baby stress. My isolation? Doctor's orders to avoid stress. I pulled out my planner, the one Renee always teased me about keeping instead of using my phone. So I made an appointment. Told him it was a romantic dinner. Had him drink champagne laced with sleeping pills. Angela's eyes widened. "Andrea, don't worry. Perfectly safe dose. Just enough to make him sleep deeply while the clinic ran their tests." That's when I got the first results. "And the second test?" "Same method, different clinic. I needed to be sure." I closed my planner. But that's not even the interesting part. Last week, I saw Rose at the same fertility clinic. She was leaving just as I arrived for the second test results. Angela leaned forward. "You think she's actually pregnant?" "Oh, I know she is. She's been avoiding wine at family dinners, making excuses about antibiotics." I pulled out my phone, showing Angela a series of photos. "She's also been meeting someone, not Renee." The photos showed Rose outside a cafe, then getting into a car. The driver's face was clear in one shot. A handsome man with dark hair. "His name is Ricky," I said. "Her ex from college. I found him on social media. They've been liking each other's posts for months. So the baby might not be Renee's at all. She's probably using their affair to trap him, make him leave me." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The irony is, she doesn't know he can't father children. He's been lying to her too. Angela reached across the table, squeezing my hand. What's your plan? I pulled out an invitation, cream-colored, elegant. My birthday dinner. I'm going to let them make their grand announcement. Let them think they've won. My voice was steady, cold. And then I'm going to destroy everything they thought they knew. Andrea, Angela said softly, this isn't just revenge. This is nuclear. I met her eyes. They didn't just betray me, Angela. They made me doubt my sanity, my worth, my ability to be a mother. I tucked the invitation back into my bag. I don't just want revenge. I want implications, destruction, accountability. And after? After? I smiled, thinking of the apartment I'd already leased, the lawyer I'd contacted, the evidence I'd gathered. After, I'm going to build a life so good they'll choke on the ashes of what they lost. The restaurant erupted into chaos after I left. Through the glass doors, I heard Rose's shrill voice. She's lying. She has to be lying. I made it halfway to my car before Mary caught up with me, her heels clicking rapidly on the pavement. Andrea, wait. She grabbed my elbow, her voice low. I always thought something was off about Rose. The way she'd hang around Renee's office parties, always touching his arm, laughing too loud at his jokes. You knew? I suspected, but I didn't want to see it. Mary glanced back at the restaurant. What are you going to do now? Now? I'm going home to pack a bag. When I pulled into our driveway, Renee's car was already there. I found him pacing in the kitchen, phone in hand. Where have you been? I've called you 6 times. I walked past him to the bedroom, pulling out the suitcase I'd hidden in the back of my closet weeks ago. Andrea, stop. We need to talk about this. He followed me, hovering in the doorway. That test. There must be some mistake. We can get another opinion. 3 years, I said, not looking at him as I packed. 3 years of watching me blame myself. Take medications. Go to therapy. All while you were fucking my sister. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I finally turned to face him. Explain it to me, Renee. Explain how you could watch me cry every month when my period came, knowing you couldn't get me pregnant even if you wanted to. His phone buzzed. Rose's face flashed on the screen. You should answer that, I said, zipping up my suitcase. Sounds like your girlfriend needs you. Where are you going? Away from you. My phone vibrated as I drove. Rose had sent a series of messages. We need to stick to our story. She's bluffing. Answer me. You're ruining everything. I turned off my phone and drove to Angela's house. She was waiting on her porch with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Mary called, she said as I sat down. Apparently Rose had a complete meltdown after you left. Started screaming about how you've always been jealous of her. I took a long sip of wine. Remember 2 months ago when I said I saw Rose at the fertility clinic? Yeah, I did more than just see her. I pulled out my phone and opened a photo. I followed her inside. The image showed Rose talking to a nurse, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. She was there for a prenatal appointment, I said. But get this. She used her old insurance card, the one from when she was still with Ricky. Angela's eyes widened. Her ex? The same ex she's been secretly meeting for coffee. I showed her another photo, Rose and Ricky outside a cafe, his hand on her lower back. I found his profile. He's been posting cryptic messages about second chances and unexpected blessings. Holy shit. Angela grabbed her laptop. Let me look him up. While she typed, my phone lit up with a text from Mary. Renee's telling everyone you're having a mental breakdown. Rose is backing him up. Found him. Angela turned the screen toward me. Look at his social media. There it was, a hidden folder on Ricky's profile. Photos of him and Rose from various dates over the past few months, carefully untagged, but not deleted. The timestamps, Angela pointed out. These are from right around when she would have gotten pregnant. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. Andrea, she said when I answered, her voice tight with anger. What you did tonight was unforgivable. What I did? What about what Rose did? She's your sister, and now she's carrying your husband's child. I cut her off with a laugh. No, Mother. She's carrying someone else's child and trying to pass it off as Renee's. But don't worry. I'm sure that won't affect her status as your perfect daughter. You've always been jealous of her. No, I said quietly. I've always been your scapegoat. But not anymore. I hung up as Angela discovered something else. A comment Ricky had left on one of Rose's photos from a holiday party 4 months ago. Best night of my life. Andrea, Angela said slowly. You need to talk to him. I nodded, already composing an email. Oh, I plan to. But first, I need to make a few calls. Starting with Renee's company. What are you going to tell them? I smiled, thinking of the financial documents I'd discovered while searching for evidence of the affair. The truth. That their VP of Finance has been falsifying reports. And that's just the beginning. Because revenge isn't just about exposing lies. It's about pulling every thread until the whole tapestry unravels. I met Ricky at a quiet coffee shop downtown, far from my usual haunts. He was already there when I arrived, fidgeting with a paper cup, looking exactly like his photos. Handsome in that boy-next-door way that Rose had always preferred. Thanks for meeting me, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. I'm Andrea. Rose's sister. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Look, I'm not sure what this is about. I think you know exactly what this is about. I placed my phone on the table, screen up, showing a photo of him and Rose outside the fertility clinic. 4 months ago. Holiday party at the Grand? Ring any bells? His face paled. She said she was single. Of course she did. I took a sip of my coffee. She's pregnant, Ricky, and she's trying to pass it off as my husband's baby. He knocked over his cup, coffee spilling across the table. She's what? Pregnant. About 4 months along, I'd say. Interesting timing, wouldn't you agree? Ricky grabbed napkins, mopping up the spill with shaking hands. We used protection. She said she was on birth control. Rose has always been creative with the truth. I pulled out a document. I need you to sign this. What is it? Consent for a paternity test. Just in case. He stared at the paper for a long moment. If I sign this, Rose will know I talked to you. Rose is already going to lose everything, I said quietly. The question is, do you want to know the truth? He signed. Meanwhile, across town, Renee's carefully constructed world was crumbling. His assistant forwarded me an email chain. His colleagues were avoiding him. His boss was reconsidering his position. And the board had called an emergency meeting. I'd sent them an anonymous tip about the falsified reports, along with copies of his fertility tests and a carefully worded suggestion about trustworthiness. My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Rose just showed up at your mom's house. Full waterworks. I drove there, parking across the street. Through the living room window, I could see Rose sobbing on the couch, my mother patting her hand. The perfect victim, as always. I walked in without knocking. How dare you? Rose sprang up, mascara streaking her cheeks. You're trying to ruin my life. You ruined your own life, I said calmly. I'm just exposing the truth. Truth? My mother stood up. The truth is, you're trying to hurt your sister because you couldn't keep your husband happy. Really, Mother? That's your take? That I somehow forced Rose to sleep with my husband? You were always so cold, Linda spat. So focused on your career. What did you expect? I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. I expected my sister not to be a whore. I expected my husband not to be a liar. I expected my mother to have a spine. Get out, Rose screamed. Get out of my house. Your house? I raised an eyebrow. You mean the house Renee bought for Mom using money he embezzled from his company? That house. The color drained from both their faces. What are you talking about? Linda whispered. Oh, you didn't know. Renee's been cooking the books for years, using company money to fund his little projects, including this house. I smiled. The board is meeting right now to discuss it. My phone pinged. An email from the testing facility. Paternity result. Match confirmed. Ricky Bowen. Perfect timing, I said, opening the attachment. Would you like to know who really got you pregnant, Rose? She lunged for my phone, but I held it out of reach. Don't worry. Everyone will know soon enough. I'm sure Ricky will be thrilled to hear he's going to be a father. You bitch! Rose swung at me, but I stepped back. You're lying. Like you lied about the baby being Renee's? Like you lied about being on birth control with Ricky? Like you've been lying your entire life? Linda grabbed my arm. Stop this. Stop it right now. I pulled free. No, Mother. I'm done stopping. I'm done being quiet. I'm done watching Rose destroy everything she touches while you clean up her messes. I'll deny it, Rose said, her voice shaking. No one will believe you. They already do. I headed for the door, pausing in the doorway. By the way, Renee's company just called. They're freezing all his assets, including this house. You might want to start packing. As I walked to my car, I could hear Rose's screams through the open window. But for the first time in my life, they didn't make me feel guilty. They made me feel free. The family brunch was my idea. I sent out a group text suggesting we all meet to talk things through civilly. Angela thought I was crazy, but she didn't see my smile when everyone agreed. I chose the country club, neutral territory with plenty of witnesses. More importantly, it had an excellent audiovisual system for presentations. Rose arrived first, wearing a flowing dress that highlighted her small baby bump. She'd clearly been crying, but her chin was lifted in defiance. I'm only here because Mom insisted, she said, sliding into her seat. Of course you are. I smiled, watching the others file in. My mother, Mary, Renee, even a few extended family members who'd heard about the drama. Andrea, Renee started, can we talk privately first? Oh no, darling. Everything I have to say, I'll say in front of everyone. Once everyone was seated, I stood up, smoothing my dress. I want to apologize for my behavior at my birthday dinner. Rose's face lit up with vindication. My mother nodded approvingly. I shouldn't have exposed your lies so abruptly, I continued. I should have been more thorough. Before anyone could respond, I pulled out a remote and clicked it. The club's large TV screen flickered to life. What is this? Rose demanded. This, I said, is the paternity test results I received yesterday. The document appeared on screen, highlighting the match between Ricky and Rose's unborn child. Congratulations, sister. Ricky's going to be a daddy. The room erupted. Rose jumped up, knocking over her water glass. You can't do this. I already did. I clicked again. Photos of Rose and Ricky appeared. Their secret meetings, the fertility clinic visits, the holiday party. You remember Ricky, don't you, Renee? Rose's ex who she was sleeping with while trying to trap you? Renee stood up so fast his chair fell backward. You told me he was out of the picture. She tells everyone what they want to hear, I said calmly. Just like you told me I was the reason we couldn't have children. Andrea, stop this immediately. My mother's voice shook with rage. Why? Because it's embarrassing? Because it ruins your perfect image of your perfect daughter? I clicked again. Bank statements appeared on screen. Speaking of ruined images, let's talk about how Renee paid for your house, Mother. Linda went pale. What? Company funds, I explained. Embezzled, of course, along with the money he's been funneling to Rose for her pregnancy needs. Though I suppose sleeping with two men at once can get expensive. Rose lunged at me, but Mary caught her arm. Don't, Mary warned. You've done enough damage. Me? Rose screamed. She's the one destroying everything. No, Rose. You destroyed everything the moment you thought you could take what was mine. I turned to Renee. By the way, your company's legal team wants to meet with me tomorrow. Something about being a material witness? Renee sank into his chair, head in his hands. His carefully constructed world was crashing down around him. You've lost your mind, my mother said, but her voice wavered. Actually, I finally found it. I clicked one last time. A video began playing. Rose and Renee in his office, planning how to tell me about the pregnancy. Planning how to break me. How did you get that? Renee demanded. You really should change your email password, darling, and check your office for recording devices. I gathered my purse. Oh, and Rose? Ricky's lawyer will be contacting you. Something about fraud and emotional damages. I'll deny everything, she hissed. With what proof? The paternity test is legally binding. The financial records are clear. The video speaks for itself. I smiled. But please, try to deny it. I'm sure the media would love to hear your side. The media? Rose's voice cracked. Did I forget to mention? Mary's been live streaming this whole conversation to her social media. Say hi to your followers, Rose. Mary held up her phone, still recording. Rose's face crumpled as she saw the comments flooding in. You thought you loved center stage, I said softly. How's the spotlight feeling now? My phone buzzed. Renee's company calling again. I answered on speaker. Mrs. Jensen, this is Howard from legal. We need to discuss some irregularities in your husband's financial documentation. Of course, I said, watching Renee's face drain of color. I'll bring everything I have to our meeting tomorrow. I hung up and faced my shattered family one last time. I'd love to stay and chat, but I have a meeting with my lawyer. Divorce papers don't file themselves. As I walked out, I heard Rose collapse into sobs, my mother's frantic attempts to comfort her, and Mary's quiet voice still narrating to her followers. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The truth was finally out, and it was more devastating than any lie they could have told. My mother showed up at my temporary apartment the next day, uninvited and unannounced. She looked older than I'd ever seen her, the weight of scandal aging her overnight. We need to talk about what you've done, she said, pushing past me into the living room. What I've done? I closed the door quietly. Not what Rose did? Not what Renee did? I always feared you'd inherit your father's coldness. She sat down, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. This calculated revenge, it's exactly what he would have done. Don't you dare compare me to him. I remained standing. He abandoned us. I'm protecting myself. By destroying your sister's life, your husband's career, they destroyed themselves. I just exposed the truth. My phone buzzed. Angela texting that she'd found something else. Before I could read it, my mother spoke again. Rose is devastated. She can barely eat, barely sleep. Like I did for 3 years? I cut her off. While she was sleeping with my husband? While you were helping her hide it? Linda's face went white. I never... Save it. Mary told me everything. The girls' lunches where you helped Rose plan how to tell me. The money you helped her hide. I pulled out my phone, showing her the transfer records. Did you think I wouldn't find out? I was trying to protect the family. No, you were protecting Rose. Like always. I sat across from her. Tell me something, Mother. When did you stop loving me? Don't be dramatic. Was it when Dad left? When I refused to play the perfect daughter role? Or was it when I started succeeding without your help? The silence stretched between us until Angela burst through the door, waving papers. Andrea, you need to see this. Oh. She stopped short at the sight of my mother. Sorry. I didn't know. It's fine, I said. What did you find? Angela glanced at Linda before continuing. Renee took out a loan in your name. $50,000. Transferred to Rose's account 3 months ago. My mother's sharp intake of breath confirmed what I'd suspected. You knew about this too, didn't you? Rose needed help, Linda whispered. The fertility treatments, the prenatal care, the fertility treatments she didn't need because she was already pregnant by someone else. I laughed bitterly. Or the prenatal care she charged to Ricky's insurance. Angela handed me the loan documents. There's more. The bank is investigating fraud. They've frozen all joint accounts. Good. I turned to my mother. You should probably warn Rose. Her credit cards might stop working soon. Linda stood up, swaying slightly. You're going to regret this vindictiveness. No, Mother. I regret the years I spent trying to please you. I regret believing Rose could change. I regret trusting Renee. I opened the door. But this I'll never regret. After she left, Angela poured us both a glass of wine. You okay? I stared at the loan documents, feeling the weight of years of deception. No, but I will be. My phone rang. Rylan, my lawyer. Andrea, we need to meet. Now. An hour later, I sat in his office, listening as he laid out the extent of Renee's financial fraud. It's worse than we thought, Rylan said, spreading documents across his desk. He's been embezzling for years, using company funds for personal expenses, falsifying reports. And the loan he took out in my name? We can prove fraud. Your signature was forged. He leaned back. The company wants to press charges. They're asking for your cooperation. I thought about Renee's smug face every time he dismissed my concerns, about Rose's triumphant smile at my birthday dinner, about my mother's constant defense of their betrayal. What do you need from me? Everything. Emails, texts, financial records. Rylan smiled grimly. They want to make an example of him. Good. I pulled out a USB drive. Because I have everything. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally broke down. Not over losing Renee. That pain had dulled to nothing more than wounded pride. Not over Rose's betrayal. I'd always known she was capable of it. No. I cried for the years I'd wasted trying to be the perfect daughter, wife, sister. For the family I thought I had. For the life I'd built on lies. My phone lit up with a text from Angela. Turn on the news. There it was. Renee's company announcing an internal investigation into financial fraud. Rose's social media accounts going dark after a flood of negative comments. My mother's country club membership being reviewed due to recent events. The carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and beneath it lay the ugly truth. They had all chosen their roles in this drama. Now they had to face the consequences of their performance. The security alarm woke me at 3 a.m. I was already reaching for my phone when I heard glass breaking downstairs. Andrea! Renee's voice slurred and angry. I know you're here. I pressed the emergency button on my phone, the one Rylan had insisted I install after filing the restraining order. Then I called Angela. He's here, I whispered. Renee broke in. Police are on their way, she said. Don't engage. Stay in your room. But Renee was already stumbling up the stairs, his footsteps heavy and uneven. You ruined everything, he shouted. My job? My reputation? Your ability to steal money? I called back, grabbing the baseball bat I'd started keeping by my bed. Your chance to play happy families with my sister? He appeared in my doorway, disheveled and reeking of alcohol. You think you're so smart, he sneered. But you're just a cold, bitter woman who couldn't keep her husband happy. And you're just a pathetic thief who couldn't keep it in his pants. I held the bat ready. Get out before the police arrive. He lunged forward, but years of drunken behavior had slowed his reflexes. I dodged easily, bringing the bat down on his knee. He howled in pain, crumpling to the floor just as police sirens wailed outside. You broke the restraining order, I said calmly, watching him writhe. That's going to look great in court. The police burst in moments later, weapons drawn, Renee was still cursing as they cuffed him, reading him his rights over his drunken protests. "You'll want to add breaking and entering to the charges," I told the officers, pointing to my security cameras. "I have it all on video." The next morning, Angela arrived with coffee and news. "Rose's influencer status is tanking. She's lost half her followers overnight." "How tragic," I said, scrolling through the headlines. "Maternity queen Rose Holland exposed in family scandal" was trending. "She's been trying to damage control," Angela continued, "claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that you're mentally unstable." "Is that why she's been hiding from Ricky's lawyers?" I showed her an email from Rylan. "They're filing a civil suit. Apparently lying about paternity for financial gain is frowned upon." My phone buzzed. A text from Mary. "Rose just tried to get into the country club. They revoked her membership. She had a meltdown in the lobby." "Your sister always did love an audience," Angela said. Speaking of audiences, I pulled up a local news website. Renee's arrest was front-page news, complete with his mugshot and details of the financial investigation. "Have you heard from your mother? She's been calling non-stop." I showed her my blocked calls list. "Probably wants me to drop the charges against Renee. Save the family name." Some family. I decided to end this chapter where it began, at the cafe where I'd first seen Rose meeting Ricky. She was already there when I arrived, looking smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced with plain maternity wear. "Come to gloat?" she asked as I sat down. "No, I came to give you this." I handed her a gift bag. She opened it cautiously, pulling out a pacifier wrapped in newspaper clippings about her scandal. Her face crumpled. "Why are you doing this to me?" "Because you need to understand something, Rose." I leaned forward. "This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about consequences. Every choice you made, every lie you told, led to this moment. I never meant—" "Yes, you did. You meant to steal my husband. You meant to pass off another man's child as his. You meant to destroy my life." I stood up. "But here's the thing about destruction, Rose. Sometimes it rebounds." "I hate you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "No, you hate yourself. And that's not my problem anymore." I dropped a manila envelope on the table. "By the way, Ricky's lawyers asked me to give you this. They're seeking full custody once the baby's born." Her sob followed me out of the cafe, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to see her pain to know it was real. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Rylan. "Renee's pleading guilty to all charges. The company wants to settle. 7 figures." I smiled, thinking of the new life waiting for me. The freedom I'd fought for. The peace I'd finally found. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's watching karma do its work while you walk away clean. The moving truck pulled away from my new apartment, leaving me alone in a space that was finally, completely mine. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, warming the hardwood floors. No traces of Renee. No echoes of Rose. Just peace. My phone buzzed. Angela arriving with housewarming wine. "This place is gorgeous," she said, taking in the view of the city. "How does it feel?" "Like freedom." I uncorked the bottle. "Did you see the news? About Renee's sentencing? 8 years seems light considering what he stole." "The money wasn't the point." I handed her a glass. "It was the lies, the manipulation. The way he made me doubt myself for years." Speaking of manipulation, Angela pulled out her phone. "Rose had her baby yesterday." "I know. Ricky's lawyer called me." I smiled. DNA test was done immediately. He's filing for full custody, given her unstable behavior and history of fraud. "Your mother must be thrilled." "Wouldn't know. Haven't spoken to her since she tried to bribe me to drop the charges against Renee." I sat on my new couch, running my hand over the soft fabric. She chose her side. Now she can live with it. The doorbell rang. "Mary, carrying a plant in a thick envelope. "Thought you might want to see this," she said, handing me the envelope. Renee's sister sent it. She found these while cleaning out his office. Inside were photos. Me and Renee in happier times, family gatherings, holidays. At the bottom was a letter from Rose to Renee, dated 3 years ago. "She's too focused on her career. Too cold. You deserve better. We deserve better." "They were planning this for years," I said quietly. "And now they have nothing," Mary replied. "Renee's in prison. Rose lost her baby to Ricky. Your mother's house is being seized as part of the settlement." "Karma's quite the architect," Angela mused. My phone lit up with a text from Rylan. "Settlement check cleared. You're officially a very wealthy woman." "What will you do with it?" Mary asked. "Already done." I showed them my laptop screen, a confirmation email for a major donation to a fertility support organization. They help women who've been manipulated or abused during fertility struggles. "Taking something ugly and making it beautiful," Angela said softly. "That's the thing about revenge," I replied. "It's not about destroying others. It's about rebuilding yourself." The doorbell rang again. This time it was a delivery, a large package from the fertility clinic where I'd first discovered Renee's lies. Inside was a letter. "Dear Ms. Jensen, we were moved by your story and your donation. We'd like to offer you our services, free of charge, whenever you're ready to start your own family, on your own terms." "Are you going to?" Angela asked. "Maybe, but not because I need a baby to be complete. Not because society expects it. Only if and when I choose." I walked to the windows, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Behind me, Angela and Mary chatted about dinner plans, their voices warm and genuine. Real friendship, not the fake support my family had offered. My phone buzzed one last time. Rose calling from an unknown number. I declined the call and blocked it. "You know what I learned from all this?" I said, turning back to my friends. They expected me to collapse, to break down, to need their version of love so badly I'd forgive anything. "But you didn't," Angela said. "No. Instead, I built myself a balcony to watch them fall." I raised my glass. "To karma." "To karma," they echoed. Later that night, alone in my new home, I found one last photo at the bottom of the envelope. Me as a child, smiling fearlessly at the camera. Before Rose's manipulation, before Renee's lies, before my mother's conditional love. I pinned it to my mirror, a reminder not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found. My strength, my worth, my voice. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just watching your enemies fall. It's rising so far above them that they become nothing more than a cautionary tale in your success story. I took one last look at the city lights before closing my curtains. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chapters. But tonight, in this space I'd carved out of their destruction, I was finally, completely at peace. Not because they'd lost everything, but because I'd found myself.
Your mom doesn't love you anymore. She chose her job over you, my mother-in-law Eleanor said in a fake sweet voice through the phone recording. I gripped the kitchen counter, my hands shaking as I listened. My best friend Sarah had secretly recorded her at Sunday dinner. "She abandoned you, just like I told your father she would." My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 35 years old, and I never thought I'd hear my own mother-in-law filling my children's heads with lies. Especially while I was recovering from emergency surgery. The worst part, my husband James believed her. 2 months ago, I collapsed at work during an important meeting. What seemed like stress turned out to be a serious medical condition. I needed surgery and a long recovery. Eleanor stepped in to help with my kids, Emma 10 and Lucas 8, while I was in the hospital. I should have known better. Eleanor never liked that I was a software engineer. She believed real mothers stayed home. She always reminded James how his mother had sacrificed everything for her family. It bothered her that I earned more than James. "See how peaceful the house is without her?" She continued in the recording. You meet a real mother, not someone who puts work first. My hands trembled as I played the recording again. Sarah had noticed something was wrong when she visited my kids last weekend. They seemed distant, avoiding questions about me, so she left her phone recording during Sunday dinner. Now I knew why my kids barely spoke to me when they visited the hospital. The sound of the front door opening snapped me back to reality. James walked in, looking tired. You're home early, he said. Shouldn't you be resting? We need to talk about your mother, I said, trying to stay calm. James sighed. Not this again, Olivia. Mom's been a lifesaver. The kids are doing great with her. Really? I held up my phone. Then why is she telling them I abandoned them? James frowned. What are you talking about? I pressed play. As Eleanor's voice filled the room, I watched James' expression change, first disbelief, then confusion. She's just trying to help, he mumbled. You weren't here. I was in the hospital. My voice cracked. Fighting for my life while your mother turned my kids against me. And you let her. That's not fair, James argued. Someone had to take care of them. You couldn't handle both work and family. His words hit me like a slap. I didn't choose this, James. I was sick. But I saw it in his eyes. He believed his mother. In her version of the story, my illness was proof that I wasn't good enough. The kids are happy now, he said, avoiding my gaze. Maybe Mom's right. Maybe you do need to rethink your priorities. I stared at him. Do you even hear yourself? Your mother is turning our children against me and you're defending her. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. You need to hear the rest of what I recorded. Come over ASAP. I grabbed my keys. I'm going to Sarah's. Don't wait up. Olivia, you're overreacting, James called after me. Mom just wants what's best for the kids. The drive to Sarah's was a blur. She opened the door before I could knock, looking serious. There's more? I asked. She nodded, opening her laptop. I went back yesterday when Eleanor was alone and recorded her talking to a friend on the phone. You need to hear this. Sarah pressed play. It's working perfectly, Eleanor said, sounding pleased. James is finally realizing he married beneath him. Once Olivia's gone, I can help him find a proper wife. The kids are young. They'll forget her soon enough. I felt sick. Eleanor wasn't just taking advantage of my illness. She was planning to erase me from my family's life. She's also telling people at church that you had a mental breakdown, Sarah added quietly. She's making sure everyone believes you're unstable. I sat in silence, letting it all sink in. Eleanor had been planting these seeds for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now she thought she had won. But she made one mistake. She underestimated me. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Remember when you told me to document everything? I have recordings you need to hear. As I hung up, a calm determination settled over me. Eleanor thought she had destroyed me. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I sat in Linda's office, watching her face as she listened to the recordings. With every word, her frown deepened. This is serious, she said, stopping the playback. What your mother-in-law is doing isn't just wrong, it's illegal. And James letting this happen? That's a problem too. We need to act fast. I nodded and pulled out a notebook filled with notes. I've been keeping track since I got out of the hospital. Every missed visit, every canceled call. Everything Eleanor has done to keep my kids away. Linda gave a small, approving smile. Smart. You've dealt with her games before, haven't you? For 12 years, I said. But this time, she's gone too far. For the next hour, we made a plan. Linda told me to gather more proof while she prepared legal paperwork. Don't confront Eleanor yet, she warned. Let her think she's winning. That evening, I picked up Emma and Lucas from school before Eleanor could get there. They looked shocked to see me. Ice cream? I asked, forcing a smile. They hesitated, then nodded. At the ice cream shop, I watched them closely. Emma kept checking her phone. Lucas looked like he wanted to say something but kept stopping himself. You know you can tell me anything, right? I said gently. Even things Grandma Eleanor told you. Emma froze, her spoon in midair. Lucas stared at his bowl. Is it true? Emma whispered. That you don't want to be our mom anymore? It felt like a punch to the stomach. Who told you that? I asked softly. Grandma said. Lucas started, then glanced at Emma. She said you were gone so long because you're moving away for work. I took a deep breath. Lucas, sweetheart, I was in the hospital. Remember the doctors? The machines? I was really sick, but do you know what kept me going? They looked at me with wide eyes. I fought to get better because nothing is more important to me than being your mom. Emma's lip trembled. But Grandma said, Grandma Eleanor is wrong, I said firmly, and I can prove it. I showed them photos from my hospital stay, the dates clear, then my medical records. Slowly, doubt faded from their faces. Is that why you had all those machines? Lucas asked. I nodded. And every day, I asked to see you. I have the messages to prove it. Emma wiped her eyes. Grandma said you were too busy with work to visit us. That was never true, I said, squeezing her hand. By the time we finished our ice cream, I could feel the wall Eleanor had built between us starting to crack. On the way home, my phone kept buzzing, James and Eleanor, demanding to know where we were. I sent a simple reply. Kids are with me. We're having family time. When we pulled up to the house, Eleanor was waiting, her face full of fake concern. Where have you been? We were so worried, she said sweetly. Before I could answer, Lucas spoke up. Mom took us for ice cream. She showed us pictures from the hospital. Eleanor's smile faltered. Oh, sweetheart, you shouldn't think about such sad things. Why don't you come stay with Grandma tonight? I'll make your favorite dinner. No, Emma said quietly. I want to stay with Mom. Eleanor's grip on her purse tightened. Don't be silly, dear. Your mother needs rest. She's not well enough. Actually, I cut in. My doctor cleared me weeks ago. Would you like to see the paperwork? Eleanor's eyes narrowed. James and I agree that the kids need stability. Your career. Mom's job isn't the problem, Emma snapped. You are. You lied about her not wanting us. The silence was thick. Eleanor's face twisted for a moment before she put on her usual innocent act. I would never, she started. Save it, I said. Kids, go inside and start your homework. I need to talk to Grandma. Once they were inside, Eleanor dropped the act. You think you're so clever, she hissed. But James knows what's best. You'll never be the mother they deserve. I smiled, thinking of the recording safe with my lawyer. We'll see about that. And Eleanor, don't come back unless you're invited. She glared at me but didn't argue. As she drove away, I could almost see her mind racing, planning her next move. But this time, I was ready. The final confrontation happened sooner than I expected. Eleanor called an emergency family meeting for the following Sunday, telling everyone I had become unstable and was refusing to let the children see their grandmother. Perfect. I arrived at Eleanor's house with Emma and Lucas, who now understood they were part of a bigger plan. James was already there, along with Eleanor's sister Margaret and her husband, plus a few other family members Eleanor had rallied to her cause. Thank you all for coming, Eleanor began, standing in her pristine living room. We need to discuss Olivia's recent concerning behavior. Actually, I interrupted smoothly. I have something to share first. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to her TV. Since we're all here to discuss behavior, let's start with this. Eleanor's face paled as her own voice filled the room. The complete recording Sarah had made, including her phone conversation about destroying my relationship with my children. It's working perfectly. James is finally seeing what I've been saying all along. Once Olivia's out of the picture, I can help him find a proper wife. The kids are young enough. They'll forget her eventually. The silence in the room was absolute. James sat frozen, his face ashen as he listened to his mother's calculated plans to destroy our family. Margaret covered her mouth in horror. Turn that off? Eleanor shrieked, lunging for the laptop. This is obviously manipulated. I have the original recordings authenticated by experts, I said calmly, plus documentation of every visit you prevented while I was in the hospital, every lie you told my children, every time you undermined my role as their mother. I turned to face the room. I've been quiet for years, tolerating the subtle digs, the manipulation, the constant criticism. But using my illness as an opportunity to turn my children against me, that crosses a line. James stood up, his voice shaking. Mom, tell me this isn't true. Eleanor's composure cracked. I did it for you. She was never good enough for you. Working all the time, making more money than you. I had to protect the children from her influence. Protect them. Emma spoke up, her voice clear and strong. You lied to us. You made us think Mom didn't want us anymore. Eleanor faltered, looking around the room for support and finding none. Even her sister Margaret was shaking her head in disgust. James, I said quietly, I've tried to be patient, to understand why you couldn't see what your mother was doing. But I won't let her poison our children's minds anymore. Linda has drawn up papers. Either you stand with your family and set clear boundaries with your mother, or we'll let a judge decide what's best for Emma and Lucas. The room erupted in chaos. Eleanor alternated between tears and accusations, but nobody was listening anymore. James walked out to the porch, and after a moment's hesitation, I followed him. I should have seen it, he said, his voice rough. All these years, the way she manipulated everything. I'm so sorry, Olivia. It's not too late to fix this, I replied, but things have to change. A week later, we sat in Linda's office, signing documents that laid out clear boundaries for Eleanor's access to our family. James had finally found his backbone, supporting my decision to limit her influence and seek family counseling. Eleanor, predictably, didn't take it well. She tried calling other family members, spinning stories about how I turned everyone against her. But the recordings spoke for themselves, and her support system crumbled. 6 months later, our family had found a new normal. James and I were working through things in therapy, rebuilding trust day by day. Emma and Lucas were thriving, no longer caught in their grandmother's web of manipulation. As for Eleanor, she sent a carefully worded apology letter, clearly crafted by her own lawyer, asking to be part of the children's lives again. Maybe someday we consider it, with strict supervision and clear boundaries. But for now, we were healing, growing stronger as a family. Eleanor had tried to destroy what I held most precious, thinking I would be too weak to fight back. She learned the hard way that a mother's love isn't something to underestimate. Last week, Emma left a note on my pillow. Thank you for fighting for us, Mom. You're the strongest person I know. Those words meant more than any victory over Eleanor ever could. I'm not giving you a single penny, Marcus said with a smug smile. No legal marriage means no shared assets. You should have thought about that before. I stood in the living room, his living room now, watching the man I had loved for 8 years tell me I was getting nothing. This was the same man who once promised that love was enough, that we didn't need a marriage certificate. My name is Alexandra. I'm 34, and my relationship was falling apart in the worst way possible. The truth hit me, Marcus had planned this from the start. He always said keeping our marriage unofficial would protect our love. But really, it was to protect him from ever having to share anything. You can't just throw me out, I said, keeping my voice steady. We built this life together. Marcus ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, a move I used to find charming. Now it felt fake, just like him. Built it together. He laughed. I bought this house. I paid for everything. You were just along for the ride. Behind him, Veronica, his 25-year-old mistress, sat in his leather chair, smirking. She played with a strand of her platinum blonde hair, a diamond bracelet on her wrist catching the light. A bracelet I had helped pay for, without realizing it. You know, that's not true, I said. My calmness made Marcus pause for just a second. I helped pay for this house. I have proof. Proof? He scoffed, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Everything is in my name. You have nothing. I thought about the safe upstairs, the one Marcus thought held only his watches and passports. You're right about one thing, I said, turning toward the stairs. I should check what I have. Packing your things? Veronica called after me. Don't forget to leave the key. I ignored her and went upstairs. Behind a painting in our bedroom was the safe. Marcus had always laughed at my choice of artwork, calling it a waste of money. Now, as I moved the painting aside, I smiled. This wasn't just a safe, it was my backup plan. 6 months ago, I had found suspicious messages on Marcus's phone. That's when I had a second, hidden compartment installed. Marcus had no idea it existed. I heard footsteps behind me. Need help with the combination? Marcus asked, leaning against the doorframe. Or are you trying to steal my watches? You should check the safe yourself, I said, stepping aside. Rolling his eyes, Marcus walked over and entered the code, our anniversary date. The safe door swung open. His face changed immediately. Where are my watches? He demanded. Check the back, I said calmly. Marcus ran his hands inside the safe, finding the hidden panel. What is this? A second compartment, I explained. It needs a different code. Want to try? His face turned red. You had no right to do this. Actually, I said, I had every right. Just like I had the right to protect myself when I realized you planned to leave me with nothing. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and played a recording, his voice talking to his lawyer about how to make sure I got nothing. The conversation was from 3 months ago, right around the time he started seeing Veronica. Marcus turned pale. You recorded me? I did a lot more than that, I said. Want to see what's in the second compartment? I think you'll find it interesting. Before he could answer, Veronica appeared at the door. What's taking so long? We have dinner reservations. I smiled. You might want to cancel. We have a lot to discuss about asset division and common law marriage laws in this state. Marcus's smug look faded. I could see the moment he realized he wasn't the only one who knew how to plan ahead. This is ridiculous, he snapped. You can't prove anything. Why don't you open the second compartment and find out? I said, leaning against the wall. The code is 071521, the day you met Veronica. I thought that was fitting. Marcus's hands shook slightly as he entered the combination. The hidden panel clicked open, revealing stacks of papers, USB drives, and a small laptop. What is all this? He asked, grabbing a file. Insurance, I said calmly. Proof of every deposit I made, every renovation I paid for, every piece of furniture I bought. But that's just the start. I opened a folder showing photos of Marcus and Veronica together, months before I was supposed to know about their affair. When someone moves money around suspiciously, a good investigator can find out a lot. Veronica stepped closer, trying to see the documents. That doesn't prove anything, she said. I smiled and pulled out another folder. Actually, it does. These bank statements show Marcus transferring money from our joint account to you, Veronica. The dates match your new car, designer clothes, and that bracelet on your wrist. Marcus lunged for the papers, but I stepped back. Careful. These are copies. The originals are with my lawyer. Your lawyer? He laughed, but I could hear the nervousness in his voice. Since when do you have a lawyer? Since I found your emails to your lawyer about hiding assets from me. I held up another document. You should really change your phone password more often. His face turned white. You had no right to look at my private messages. Just like you had no right to take money from our savings. I shot back, pulling out more statements. Or to use that money to take care of her. Veronica's smirk disappeared. Marcus, what is she talking about? I turned to her. He's been using our money to fund your relationship, and according to these documents, I paid for over 60% of our household expenses in the last 3 years, while Marcus spent on his business ventures. Marcus shook his head. That's not true. Everything's in my name. That doesn't matter, I said, opening my laptop. In this state, if a couple acts like they're married for long enough, the law treats them as married. And we did, for 8 years. I played video clips from holidays, family events, and business functions. In each one, Marcus introduced me as his wife. Every clip was dated and saved. But that's not even the worst part, I said, pulling out the last folder. Remember the business loan you took out last year? The one that needed a spouse's signature? Marcus went pale. You wouldn't. You forged my name, I said flatly. I have proof. The bank's fraud department was very interested in it. Veronica took a step back, eyes wide. You told me you were divorced, that everything was settled. I sighed. He lied to both of us. The difference is, I figured it out and prepared. Marcus leaned against the wall, his plan falling apart. What do you want? He asked weakly. Fairness. Half of what we built, the house, the savings, everything. If you fight me, I can take this to court. And we both know that won't end well for you. Veronica grabbed her purse. I can't believe this. You told me you were rich, that everything was yours. Veronica, wait, Marcus called as she rushed downstairs. I calmly put the files back into the safe. I'll have my lawyer prepare a fair settlement. I highly suggest you sign it. You planned all of this, Marcus accused. No, I said. I just learned from you. You taught me how to protect myself, keep evidence, and plan ahead. I guess I was a better student than you expected. Outside, Veronica's car roared to life and sped away. Marcus looked lost. His perfect plan to leave me with nothing had completely failed. I'll give you time to think about it, I said, closing the safe and putting the painting back. Oh, and don't bother trying to open the safe again. I already changed the combination. 3 months after the confrontation at the safe, I sat in my new apartment overlooking the city park, sipping coffee and reviewing the final settlement papers. Everything had worked out better than I'd expected, though not without some drama along the way. Marcus, predictably, had tried to fight back at first. He'd attempted to empty our remaining accounts the very next day, only to find I'd already frozen them with evidence of his previous unauthorized withdrawals. Then he tried claiming some of my evidence was obtained illegally, until my lawyer pointed out that all surveillance had been conducted in our shared home where I had legal residence. The turning point came when Veronica, furious about being deceived, contacted me with more evidence. Apparently, Marcus had written her several checks from his business account, listing them as consulting fees to hide our money from me. She'd kept copies of everything. I thought you should have these, she'd said during our coffee meeting. He played us both, just in different ways. The bank's fraud department was particularly interested in those documents along with the forged loan papers. Faced with potential criminal charges, Marcus finally gave in. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Settlement approved by the judge. Everything's official now. I smiled, remembering Marcus's words from that day. I'm not giving you a penny. In the end, he'd given me exactly what I deserved. Half of everything we'd built together. The house was being sold, with proceeds to be split equally. Our joint accounts were divided, and he had to repay every penny he'd given to Veronica from our money. My doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Lisa, my best friend, holding a bottle of champagne. Ready to celebrate, she asked, grinning. The papers just came through, I confirmed, letting her in. I still can't believe you pulled this off, she said, setting down her bag. When you first told me Marcus was cheating, I was so worried he'd leave you with nothing. I led her to the kitchen, grabbing champagne flutes. I learned something important through all this, I said, watching her pop the cork. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about being prepared. And boy, were you prepared. Lisa laughed, pouring the champagne. The look on his face in the security footage when he tried to access the safe again was priceless. That had been an interesting day. The cameras I'd installed caught him attempting to break into the safe while I was out. The police had been very interested in that footage too. You know what the best part is? I said, taking my glass. I'm actually happier now. All those years, I was trying to make a marriage work with someone who saw me as disposable. Lisa raised her glass. To new beginnings? To new beginnings, I agreed. And to good lawyers, hidden safes, and karma. We settled on my new balcony, enjoying the spring breeze. Below, people walked their dogs and pushed strollers through the park. A completely different view from the suburban house I'd shared with Marcus. Have you heard what happened with his business? Lisa asked. I nodded. The bank audit triggered by the fraud investigation found some creative accounting. He's had to sell his share to his partners. Karma really is something, Lisa mused, and Veronica? Last I heard, she's dating one of the bank investigators, I said, unable to hold back a laugh. Apparently, they hit it off when she was providing evidence against Marcus. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the sea. I thought about how different my life was from what I'd imagined when Marcus first proposed our private ceremony 8 years ago. Back then, I thought love was enough. Now I knew better. Trust had to be earned and protection had to be ensured. My phone buzzed again. An email from my new business partner. After the divorce settlement, I'd invested my share in a property development company. Turned out I had quite a talent for it, probably from all those years managing our household renovations. Speaking of new beginnings, I told Lisa, we just closed on that downtown project I told you about. The returns are looking even better than projected. Look at you, she said proudly. From almost losing everything to building your own empire. I shook my head. I never almost lost everything. Even when Marcus thought he had me cornered, I was always 2 steps ahead. That's the difference between us. He planned to tear someone down, while I planned to build myself up. As the sky darkened and city lights began twinkling, I felt a deep sense of peace. The safe upstairs in my old house had held more than just documents. It had contained my freedom, my future, and my power to choose my own path. Marcus had taught me one valuable lesson. Always keep evidence, always plan ahead, and never let anyone make you feel powerless. It wasn't the lesson he'd intended to teach, but it was one I'd never forget. Marcus packed his fancy shirts into a suitcase, barely glancing at me. "The kids will understand," he said. "They'll love Amanda. She's great with children." I stood in the doorway, watching the man I had been married to for 15 years pack up his life. His words made my stomach turn, but I kept my face calm. "They're only 8 and 10, Marcus. They barely know her." He shrugged, carefully placing his expensive watches into a case. "Kids adapt. Besides, they'll have to. We're moving in together next week. My name is Emma. I'm 38 years old, and my husband was leaving me and our kids for his 26-year-old yoga instructor. But I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging him to stay. Instead, I was thinking about the phone call I got yesterday from our family lawyer. "And the divorce?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "When are you filing?" Marcus smirked. "No need for all that, Em. Amanda and I think we should keep things simple. No lawyers, no splitting money. Let's just move on." Of course he wanted that, because he didn't know about my father's trust fund. He had no idea that his plans were about to fall apart. "Whatever you think is best," I said, watching him zip up his bags. He paused at the doorway, eyeing me suspiciously. "You're taking this better than I expected." I smiled, thinking about the bank statement arriving tomorrow. I've learned to adapt. 12 hours earlier, I had sat in Mr. Thompson's office, our lawyer, as he explained something that changed everything. "Your father was a smart man, Emma," he said, pulling out a thick folder. "Before he passed, he created a trust fund for you and your children, with some very special rules." I remember my father's words before he died. "Always have a backup plan, Emma. Always be 3 steps ahead." The trust fund becomes active if your husband tries to abandon his financial responsibilities to your children. Mr. Thompson explained. "Your father wanted to make sure his grandchildren were protected." I thought about how Marcus always controlled our money, how he gave me an allowance while he spent freely on himself. "And Marcus doesn't know about this?" I asked. Mr. Thompson smiled. "Your father was clear. Marcus was never supposed to know unless he triggered the conditions. And since he's been emptying accounts and trying to sell property without your consent, it's time." Now, I watched Marcus load his bags into his shiny sports car, completely unaware that by tomorrow, his bank accounts would be frozen. "I'll call you about seeing the kids," he said, closing the trunk, "once Amanda and I are settled." Upstairs, our children, Lily and James, watched their father leave. Lily pressed her small hand against the window, confused and hurt. James stood behind her, his face angry. No 10-year-old should have to feel that. "Take care, Marcus," I said softly. He drove away without looking back. He thought he was heading toward a perfect new life. But by tomorrow morning, the money he'd been secretly using to pay for Amanda's luxury apartment would be gone. I walked back inside and climbed the stairs to my children's rooms. They needed me now more than ever. But I wasn't worried about our future. My father had made sure we would be okay. Lily looked up at me, tears in her eyes. Is Daddy really going to live with his friend now? I sat on her bed, pulling both her and James close. "Yes, sweetie. But we're going to be okay. Better than okay." "How do you know?" James asked, trying to sound tough. I thought about the trust fund, about everything my father had planned to protect us. I thought about Marcus's face when he realized he had lost everything. "Because your grandpa made sure of it," I said, hugging them tighter. "And tomorrow, Daddy is going to learn what happens when someone forgets what really matters." That night, as my children slept, I sat in my office, getting ready for what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Amanda thinks we should take the kids to Disneyland next month. Show them how fun their new life can be." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email. Mr. Thompson had sent me tomorrow's schedule. While Marcus dreamed about vacations, a team of financial experts was already tracking every bad decision he had made. The kids would be okay. I would make sure of it. And as for Marcus, he was about to learn that some choices have consequences. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7:15 a.m. Marcus's name flashed on the screen, but I ignored it. By the 4th call, I could imagine his panic. His credit cards weren't working, his bank accounts were locked, and all his secrets were coming out. I was making breakfast for the kids when the front door burst open. Marcus stormed in, his face red with anger. "What did you do?" he shouted, waving his phone. Every account is frozen, even my personal ones. Lily stopped eating her pancakes. James gripped his fork tightly. I stayed calm, pouring more orange juice. Kids, why don't you eat in the playroom? Mom needs to talk to Dad. Once they were gone, I turned to Marcus. Rough morning. Fix this, he demanded. Amanda and I were supposed to put a deposit on our new house today. The realtor is waiting. I leaned against the counter, remembering how he had always brushed off my concerns about money. I'm not the one you need to talk to. Our lawyer, Mr. Thompson, is handling everything now. What does that old fossil have to do with this? The doorbell rang. Perfect timing. I opened it to find Mr. Thompson, looking sharp in his charcoal suit, holding a thick folder. Mrs. Sullivan, he greeted me. And Mr. Sullivan, good. This saves me a phone call. Marcus frowned. What's going on? Please have a seat, Mr. Thompson said, placing his briefcase on the table. We have a lot to discuss about your financial decisions. My finances are none of your business, Marcus snapped. Actually, Mr. Thompson said, opening his folder, they became my business the moment you violated the rules of the Sullivan Family Trust. Marcus's face turned pale. What trust? The one Emma's father created before he passed away. It has been watching your financial activities for the past 15 years, Mr. Thompson explained, and it activates when a spouse tries to abandon their financial responsibilities to the children. Marcus dropped into a chair, his confidence fading. That's impossible. I would have known. Would you? I asked. You always told me not to worry about complicated money stuff. You never even read the documents. Mr. Thompson pulled out some papers. Let's review your actions. Last month, you emptied 3 joint accounts. You tried to sell properties that belonged to the trust. You made large payments to an outside party. Those were business expenses. Marcus interrupted. The rent for Amanda's apartment wasn't a business expense, I said. Neither was the car or the jewelry you bought her. Marcus's eyes widened. You knew. I knew everything, I said. My dad taught me to always be prepared. Mr. Thompson continued. The trust has rules about financial misconduct. All joint assets are frozen. Your personal accounts are under investigation. The properties you tried to sell are protected by the trust. You can't do this, Marcus muttered. We already have, Mr. Thompson replied, pulling out another document. Your actions triggered the trust's rules. All assets will be managed by the trust until your divorce is finalized. Divorce? Marcus jumped up, knocking over his chair. I told you, we were keeping this informal. That's not an option anymore, Mr. Thompson said. The trust requires a legal divorce to protect the children's interests. I heard a small sound and turned to see James and Lily peeking from the hallway. Their faces were filled with worry. Perhaps we should continue this at my office, Mr. Thompson suggested. 2 p.m. today. Your presence is required, Mr. Sullivan. Marcus looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. I saw fear in his eyes. Emma, we can fix this. Amanda and I will figure something out. I thought about all the times he had ignored me, controlled me, made me feel small. No, Marcus, we can't. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. After they left, Marcus, probably to explain to Amanda why their house wasn't happening, and Mr. Thompson to prepare for our meeting, I sat with my kids in the playroom. Is Dad in trouble? James asked. Dad made some bad choices, I said, pulling them close. But Grandpa made sure we'd be okay. Even though Grandpa is in heaven? Lily asked. I smiled, thinking about my father's wisdom, especially because he's in heaven. He loved us so much, he made sure we'd always be taken care of. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. This isn't fair. Marcus promised me that house. I blocked her number without replying. The trust fund hadn't just protected us. It had revealed who Marcus and Amanda truly were. They thought I was weak. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. 6 months passed, bringing changes I never expected. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, backed by the trust fund's legal team. Marcus's attempts to hide assets crumbled under forensic accounting. Amanda disappeared the moment she realized there would be no luxury house, no lavish lifestyle, no easy path to wealth. I sat in Mr. Thompson's office, reviewing the final settlement papers. The trust fund hadn't just protected us. It had revealed years of Marcus's financial deceptions. Your father would be proud, Mr. Thompson said, sliding the last document across his desk. He always said you were stronger than anyone knew. I wish he could see the kids now, I replied, thinking of how well they'd adjusted. They're finally healing. The transformation in my children had been remarkable. Once the initial shock wore off, they began to thrive. James joined the school baseball team, his confidence growing with each game. Lily discovered a passion for art, filling our home with bright paintings that somehow made everything feel lighter. Marcus's weekly visits became monthly, then sporadic. His promises of Disneyland and grand adventures faded into rushed dinners and distracted conversations. The children noticed, but instead of breaking them, it made them stronger. "Mom," James said one evening after a particularly short visit with his father, "I think I understand why Grandpa made that trust thing." "Oh?" I looked up from my book, curious. He knew sometimes grown-ups make bad choices. He wanted to make sure we'd be okay anyway. Out of the mouths of babes, the doorbell rang one Sunday afternoon while we were baking cookies. Marcus stood there, looking deflated in a way I'd never seen before. Gone were the designer clothes and expensive watch. He looked ordinary. "Can we talk?" he asked. I hesitated, but the kids were upstairs. 5 minutes. He shuffled into the kitchen, eyeing the familiar space like a stranger. "Amanda's gone," he said finally, "moved to California with some tech entrepreneur." "I'm sorry to hear that," I replied, though we both knew I wasn't. I was stupid, Emma. I threw away everything that mattered for nothing. I thought about responding, about pointing out all the ways he'd hurt us. But what was the point? His consequences weren't my responsibility anymore. "The kids miss you," I said instead. "When you do show up." He flinched. "I know. It's hard seeing them, seeing what I gave up." "They're not a punishment, Marcus. They're your children." He nodded, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I remembered from our early days. "Your father, he was smarter than I ever gave him credit for. That trust fund, he knew, didn't he? He knew someone like me might come along. He knew people make choices," I corrected. "He just made sure those choices couldn't hurt his grandchildren." As if on cue, Lily's laughter drifted down from upstairs, followed by James's playful shout. The sound seemed to hit Marcus like a physical blow. "I'd like to do better," he said quietly. "Be better. For them." "That's your choice to make," I replied, "just like all the others." After he left, I found my father's old photo on the mantel. He was smiling, one arm around me at my college graduation. He'd already been sick then, but his eyes were sharp, determined. "You were right, Dad," I whispered. "About everything." Today, a year after Marcus first walked out, our lives have found a new rhythm. The trust fund ensured we kept our home. The children's education would be secure, and we had the freedom to rebuild without fear. Marcus, he's trying in his way. Weekly dinners with the kids, showing up to James's baseball games, attending Lily's art shows. It's not the family we were, but maybe it's the family we needed to become. I started my own business, something I'd always dreamed of but never dared pursue under Marcus's controlling influence. The children are thriving in ways that amaze me daily. James recently won his first baseball trophy, and Lily's art was featured in the school gallery. Last week, I found a letter from my father tucked away in his old desk, written days before he died, saved for when I might need it most. My dearest Emma, by the time you read this, you'll understand why I set up the trust the way I did. Not just to protect you, but to remind you of your own strength. Sometimes the best way to love someone is to make sure they have the freedom to stand on their own. You've always been stronger than you knew. Now the world will see it too. Love, Dad. I keep that letter framed in my office now, next to the children's photos and Lily's brightest paintings. It reminds me that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. Marcus's choices didn't break us. Instead, they revealed just how unbreakable we really were. And for that, strangely enough, I'm grateful. Because in the end, my father was right. The trust fund wasn't just about money. It was about giving us the strength to choose our own path, to build something better from the ashes of what was lost. And that's exactly what we did. Get out. My son deserves better than you, Martha shouted, pushing me out onto the cold porch at 2 a.m. The freezing air cut through my thin pajamas. "You're 45. You can't give him children. He needs someone younger." I watched as she locked the door, her hands shaking with anger, or maybe satisfaction. Through the window, I saw my husband David, passed out on the couch, too drunk to notice. My name is Isabella. At 45, my mother-in-law just threw me out of my own home while my husband lay unconscious. But I didn't cry. I didn't beg. Instead, I walked to my car and made a call. "Hey, Sophie, can I stay with you for a few days? Just some house issues." As I drove, I thought about the red flags I had ignored. The secret calls, Martha's sudden interest in our fertility struggles, the young woman at their church. David and I met when I was 40 and he was 38. It was a whirlwind romance. He didn't care about the age gap, but Martha did. No matter what I did, cooking her favorite meals, helping with her charities, it was never enough. When I arrived, Sophie was already waiting. "Izzy, what happened? And don't lie." I sighed. "Martha finally did it. She kicked me out." "What? She can't do that. The house is in your name too." "Actually," I said, settling onto her couch, "it's only in my name." Sophie's jaw dropped. I opened my laptop, showing her documents, emails, bank statements, deeds. Years ago, David transferred everything to me to protect our assets during a lawsuit. Martha never knew. And that's not all. I continued pulling up another folder. Photos showed Martha with a young woman, Jessica, 28. They were shopping, having lunch, even visiting a fertility clinic. "Martha's been preparing Jessica to replace me," I said. "She promised her my house, my cars, everything, but none of it belongs to her." Sophie shook her head. "So what's your plan?" I smiled. "First, sleep, then my lawyer." For 2 days, I stayed quiet. I ignored David's calls and Martha's texts. My lawyer worked fast. "Your security footage proves Martha broke into your office," he said. "With a conspiracy to steal your assets, we have a case." "And the restraining order?" I asked. "Ready to be filed. Neither Martha nor Jessica will be allowed near your properties." On the third day, I made my move. First, the police removed Martha and Jessica from my house. Then they were served restraining orders. Finally, I changed the locks, this time with a high-tech security system. Later, David showed up, confused. "Izzy, what's going on? Mom said you left me for another man." Then the police came. I slid a folder toward him. "Your mother lied. She threw me out and tried to move your girlfriend in." "Yes, I know about Jessica, the fertility clinic, everything." David's face went pale. "Wait, the house, the cars, they're all in your name." "Everything," I said. "And now your mother is facing criminal charges." "But she was just trying to help me," he mumbled. I laughed. "Help? By destroying our marriage? By plotting with another woman? That's not help, David. That's manipulation." Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Martha. "Please, we need to talk. I didn't know. Please don't do this." I showed it to David. "Your mother made her choice. Now, what's yours?" David sat across from me, looking shocked and confused. He ran his hands through his graying hair. "I never meant for this to happen," he said. "Mom kept saying we needed a fresh start, that you were holding me back." "And Jessica?" I asked quietly. "Was she part of this fresh start?" David flinched. "Nothing happened. Mom introduced us at church, kept inviting her over when you were working late. She said Jessica reminded her of herself when she was young." I turned my laptop toward him. "Nothing happened." Then explained this. On a screen, Martha and Jessica were in my office, trying on my jewelry, looking through my files. "They were in our house, David, planning their future with my things while you were passed out drunk." His face crumpled. "I didn't know. I swear, Izzy." I took a deep breath. "Your mother kicks me out at 2 a.m., moves in a younger woman, and you thought that was okay." Before he could answer, my phone buzzed again. More messages from Martha. "I was just trying to protect my son. Please don't destroy our family. The police said I could go to jail. You wouldn't do that to David's mother, would you?" I showed them to David. "She still thinks she can manipulate her way out of this." David looked lost. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to make a choice," I said. "Not your mother's, not Jessica's. Yours." The doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Martha stood on the porch, her mascara running. Jessica stood behind her, looking scared. "They're breaking the restraining order," I said, picking up my phone. "Wait," David said, touching my hand. Let me talk to them first. I study his face. For the first time in months, he looked clear-headed. 5 minutes, I said, and they stay outside. David stepped onto the porch and shut the door behind him. I watched through the security camera. Martha reached for him, but he stepped back. How could you do this, Mom? He asked. You broke into our house. You went through Izzy's things. I did it for you, Martha cried. She's too old for you, David. She can't give you children. Jessica is young, fertile. Stop it, David snapped. You didn't do this for me. You did it for yourself. You never accepted my marriage, and now you've gone too far. Jessica spoke up. David, your mom said you loved me, that you were just waiting for the right time to leave her. David shook his head. I never said that. Mom, you told me Jessica was just a friend. But you were planning to ruin my marriage. Martha's face hardened. She'll send me to jail. Your own mother. How can you let her do this? You did this to yourself, David said quietly. Breaking into our home, trying to steal from Izzy. Those were your choices. Martha's face fell. Jessica was already backing away, realizing she wasn't getting my house after all. David, please, Martha begged. Tell her to drop the charges. No, Mom, he said firmly. I won't ask her to do that. You need to leave. Now, before I call the police myself. I watched as they left. I felt relief, sadness, and something close to pride. David had finally stood up to his mother. When he came back inside, his eyes were red, but his shoulders were straight. I'm so sorry, Izzy, he said. I've been a fool. Yes, you have, I said, but gently. What happens now? He sighed. I need help. I've been drinking too much, letting Mom control me. I don't want to lose you, but I understand if it's too late. I sat beside him, close but not touching. It's not too late, but things have to change. Your mother has to face the consequences. You need help for your drinking. And we need counseling. A lot of it. Anything, he said. I'll do anything to fix this. Just then, my phone buzzed again. A message from Martha. You've turned my son against me. I will never forgive you for this. I showed it to David. He sighed. She still doesn't get it. But I do. I choose you, Izzy. I choose us. As the security system beeped, showing Martha's car leaving the street, David squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. Sometimes everything has to fall apart before you can build something stronger. 6 months passed like seasons changing, each day bringing small but significant transformations. David kept his promise, attending AA meetings 3 times a week and counseling sessions twice a month. I went with him to couples therapy, where we slowly rebuilt the trust that had been fractured. Martha faced the consequences of her actions. The court showed leniency due to her age and David's plea, sentencing her to 2 years probation and mandatory counseling. She was also ordered to pay substantial restitution for the items she damaged in my office during her break-ins. Jessica disappeared from our lives completely. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state, perhaps finally understanding that she'd been a pawn in Martha's game. One crisp autumn evening, as David and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset, he turned to me with clear, sober eyes. You know what I realized today? It's been exactly 6 months since that night. I nodded, sipping my tea. The memory of that cold midnight eviction no longer stung like it used to. A lot has changed. Mom called again, he said quietly. She wants to apologize in person. Says her counselor thinks it's important for her healing process. I considered this for a moment. And what do you think? I think, he said slowly, that for the first time in her life, she's actually doing the work. But I also think it's your decision. She hurt you more than anyone. His words warmed me more than the tea. 6 months ago, he would have pressured me to forgive and forget, to keep the peace. Now he understood the importance of boundaries. We can meet at a neutral place, I suggested. That little cafe downtown, perhaps. 2 days later, I sat across from Martha in the sunny cafe. She looked different, smaller somehow, less imposing. The perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple sweater and minimal makeup. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she began, her hands wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. My counselor wanted me to tell you how sorry I am, but that feels inadequate. It is, I agreed calmly. She flinched but continued. I was wrong. Not just about what I did, but about everything. I thought I was protecting David, but I was only protecting my own ego. Seeing him so happy with someone who didn't need my guidance, it made me feel obsolete. You're his mother, Martha. You could never be obsolete unless you choose to be. Tears welled in her eyes. I chose wrong. I let my pride and prejudice blind me. Watching David these past months, he's happier, healthier. He finally grew into the man he was meant to be. And it happened when I stepped back, not when I tried to control everything. I stirred my tea thoughtfully. You know this doesn't fix everything, right? Trust has to be rebuilt. Boundaries have to be respected. I know, she nodded. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I can change. As I drove home later, I thought about change and redemption. Martha's actions had nearly destroyed our family, but they'd also forced us to confront long-standing issues. David found sobriety and independence. I found my voice and strength. Even Martha was finally facing her own demons. David was waiting when I got home, trying not to look anxious. How did it go? I hung up my coat, considering my answer. Better than I expected. She's different, more genuine. Time will tell if it lasts. He pulled me into a hug, and I relaxed against him. Thank you, he whispered into my hair, for not giving up on us, for being stronger than all of us. That night, as we lay in bed, David already asleep beside me, I remembered standing in the cold 6 months ago, wondering if our marriage was over. Instead, it had been a beginning, the start of something stronger, more honest, more real. My phone lit up with a text from Martha. Thank you for today. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. I hope someday you can trust me again. I typed back a simple response, one day at a time. It was what David always said at his AA meetings, and it felt right for this situation too. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen, one choice, one day, one moment at a time. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the ace I'd had up my sleeve that night, not just the legal documents or the surveillance footage, but the strength to stand up for myself, to demand better, to allow consequences to unfold naturally. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's giving people the space to face their own actions and grow from them. And sometimes, like a garden after a storm, what grows back is stronger than what was there before. Just leave, Olivia. No need for lawyers or paperwork, Marcus said, watching me pack. Downstairs, his young girlfriend, Hannah, laughed as she rearranged my furniture. I stayed calm as I folded my clothes. Are you sure? No legal separation, no formal divorce. Marcus leaned against the door, arms crossed. What's the point? You have your job, I have mine. Hannah and I want a fresh start. Lawyers will just make things messy. I'm Olivia Parker, 42. I thought my marriage was fine minus 15 years, a nice house, a stable life. But life has surprises, sometimes in the form of betrayal. Marcus glanced at his expensive watch, the one I bought him for our 10th anniversary. You're not in a position to demand anything. The house and cars are in my name. Your government job pays enough. You'll be fine. That government job. If only he knew. I zipped up my suitcase, taking one last look around. Hannah's perfume filled the room. Her bag was on my side of the bed. You're taking this well, Marcus said, expecting me to cry or beg. I smiled, remembering how I found out about his affair, not through text or lipstick stains, but in a much more interesting way. I've learned to pick my battles, Marcus, I said, but I'm surprised you don't want legal proof of our separation. He shrugged. Why bother? You move out, Hannah moves in. Life goes on. No paper trail. That almost made me laugh. Downstairs, Hannah was already replacing my things. She barely looked up as I walked past. I left some things in the study. I'll be back tomorrow, I said. Whatever. Just text first, Marcus replied, already focused on Hannah. I loaded my suitcase into my car and glanced back. Through the window, Marcus and Hannah were laughing, wrapped up in their new life. I pulled out my phone and sent a text. Everything ready for tomorrow. Target confirmed, no legal documentation. Proceeding as planned. The reply was instant. Understood. Team briefed. 9 a.m. sharp. I took a last look at the house Marcus thought was his. He had no idea what was coming. He never questioned my job, never wondered why I handled all our finances, never noticed how his investment portfolio always did better than others. As I drove, my phone buzzed again. Additional evidence collected. Operation confirmed. Tomorrow, Marcus would finally understand what my job really was. He would learn that his wife, the woman he betrayed, was actually protecting him all these years. But not anymore. At exactly 9 a.m., Justice would arrive at his door, wearing a bulletproof vest and carrying a federal warrant. The next morning, I sat in an FBI surveillance van, sipping coffee while watching live camera feeds of my old house. Marcus's routine was always the same. 7:45 a.m., kitchen lights on. Hannah trying to cook his favorite breakfast. 8:15 a.m., Marcus showering, then fixing his hair. 8:45 a.m., adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. Target is getting ready to leave, Agent Torres said. All teams in position. A chorus of voices confirmed. You okay? Torres asked. She knew this was personal for me. Better than okay, I said, watching Hannah kiss Marcus goodbye. Feels strange being on this side of the operation. For 3 years, I had gathered evidence against Marcus's investment firm. What started as a simple investigation uncovered fraud, money laundering, and serious financial crimes. No wonder Marcus didn't want legal paperwork between us. He was hiding more than just an affair. At 8:55 a.m., Marcus stepped outside, briefcase in hand, still smug, still thinking he was untouchable. He checked his reflection in his car window, straightening a silk tie paid for with dirty money. All teams ready, Torres ordered. Remember, he isn't violent but may try to destroy evidence. Marcus got into his Mercedes, the car he bought in only his name. For tax reasons, he once said, now I knew the truth. It was harder to seize assets he owned alone. Target is moving, Torres announced. Team 1, go to the house. Team 2, prepare to intercept at his office. I focused on Hannah, still inside, cleaning up breakfast. She had no idea her dream life was about to crumble. 9 o'clock a.m. sharp, FBI agents surrounded the house. The doorbell rang. Hannah, wearing my old robe, opened the door, confused. FBI. We have a search warrant. Her confusion turned to panic. What? This has to be a mistake. No mistake, ma'am. Step aside. On another screen, Marcus was halfway to his office when flashing police lights appeared behind him. His car slowed, pulling over. Target has stopped, an agent confirmed. Moving in. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. What did you do? I didn't reply. Instead, I watched as agents approached, guns ready, just in case. Marcus stepped out, hands raised. His expensive suit suddenly didn't seem so powerful. Back at the house, Hannah sat crying on the couch as agents searched every corner. They knew exactly where to look. I had given them every detail. We found the first stash, an agent reported. Hidden safe in the study. Just like Agent Parker said. I smiled. Marcus had always praised my organization skills. He never realized I was using them against him. Torres turned to me. You knew about his crimes this whole time? I nodded. Discovered them 3 years ago. Started collecting evidence immediately. He never thought I was smart enough to understand his work, so he didn't bother hiding it. And the mistress. Found out about Hannah 3 months ago. She wasn't the first, but she was the last straw. My phone buzzed again. Marcus's lawyer this time. We need to talk. Now. Of course they wanted to talk. They were just realizing the truth. No shared accounts, no assets in my name, no divorce papers. It wasn't to protect Marcus. It was to make it easier for the FBI to take everything. On the screen, Hannah was being led out of the house, sobbing. She had thought she was gaining a perfect life. Instead, she was about to be questioned as a witness in a federal case. Target is secure. Moving to Phase 2, an agent said. Phase 2, raiding Marcus's office. His colleagues would soon discover that their star investment banker was actually a fraud. His clients would learn their high returns were all lies. Marcus? He was about to learn that the wife he underestimated had been watching and preparing for this moment all along. One more text came in, this time from Hannah. Did you know about this? I finally replied, yes. Now you know why Marcus didn't want a paper trail between us. Torres patted my shoulder. Ready to head to the office. They need you for the evidence analysis. I stood adjusting my FBI jacket. Let's go. Time to show them what a government job really looks like. 6 months later, I sat in the federal courthouse, watching Marcus enter in his orange jumpsuit. Gone was the expensive suit, the confident strut, the smug smile. The evidence I'd gathered over 3 years had proven devastating, not just for him, but for the entire firm. Hannah had turned state's witness almost immediately, desperate to avoid any charges herself. She provided additional details about conversations she'd overheard, meetings she'd witnessed, proving herself surprisingly useful to the prosecution. All rise. As the judge entered, I caught Marcus's eye. For the first time since his arrest, he looked directly at me. I saw the questions there, the confusion, the slow realization of just how completely he'd underestimated me. The sentencing was brief but impactful. 15 years, one for each year of our marriage. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The judge was particularly harsh, citing Marcus's blatant disregard for his client's financial security and his persistent pattern of deception. After the proceedings, I stepped into the courthouse hallway where Agent Torres waited. 15 years, she said, handing me a coffee, plus full asset forfeiture. The restitution team has already begun returning funds to the defrauded clients. I nodded, thinking about the house. Our house, now seized and pending auction. Hannah had moved back in with her parents, her dreams of being a wealthy man's wife shattered along with her reputation. Agent Parker? I turned to find Marcus's lawyer approaching. Your ex-husband would like to speak with you, if you're willing. I considered refusing, but curiosity won out. Minutes later, I sat across from Marcus in a small conference room, guards posted outside. Why didn't you tell me? He asked immediately. All those years, you knew what I was doing. You could have warned me. I laughed softly. I did warn you, Marcus. Remember all those times I questioned your investment strategies, suggested more transparent reporting. You always dismissed me, said I couldn't understand the complexities of your work. He winced, remembering. I never thought, your government job. No, you never did think about my job, did you? Never asked what I actually did, never showed any interest. You just assumed I was some minor bureaucrat pushing papers. When did you know? About everything. 3 years ago. That big client win you celebrated. The offshore accounts. That was when I started building the case. I could have arrested you then, but I wanted to understand the full scope of the operation. He leaned back, realization dawning. And Hannah? She made my decision easier, showed me it was time to stop protecting you. A guard signaled our time was ending. As I stood to leave, Marcus spoke again, his voice smaller than I ever heard it. I'm sorry, Olivia, not just for Hannah, for everything. I paused at the door. I know, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. Outside, spring was arriving in the city. I walked with Torres to our office, where a new case waited. Life was different now, but better. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more protecting someone who'd never valued me. The team's taking me out tonight, Torres said as we reached our building. To celebrate the conviction, you should come. I smiled, checking my phone. A text from my sister about dinner plans next week, another from a friend about a weekend hiking trip. My life had expanded since Marcus's arrest, filled with people and possibilities I'd forgotten existed. Count me in, I replied. Later that evening, surrounded by colleagues who'd become friends, I raised a glass to new beginnings. Someone asked if I regretted not turning Marcus in sooner. No, I said honestly. Everything happened exactly when it needed to. And it had. Marcus's arrest had exposed not just his crimes, but a larger network of financial fraud. The case had earned me a promotion, respect from colleagues who'd worked the investigation without knowing my personal connection, and most importantly, my freedom. The house would be sold, the assets distributed to victims, and Marcus would have plenty of time to think about his choices. Hannah had learned a hard lesson about trust and ambition. Though I heard she'd enrolled in community college, perhaps something good would come of it all. As for me, I was exactly where I needed to be. My government job had become a source of pride, my colleagues a source of strength, and my future, well, that was looking brighter than ever. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about standing back and letting justice take its course. And sometimes it's about showing everyone, including yourself, exactly who you've been all along. The next morning, I walked into my office, new case files waiting on my desk. Another financial fraud investigation, another chance to protect people from those who would exploit them. I smiled, thinking of Marcus's words, no need for legal papers. He'd been right about that, just not in the way he'd imagined. We hadn't needed divorce papers after all. Federal indictments had worked just fine. You were never really married to my son, Diana shouted, waving some papers in my face. These documents prove it. You lied and tricked him. Her face showed victory as she stood in my living room, holding what looked like legal papers. Behind her, my husband, Michael, looked nervous, avoiding my eyes. His new girlfriend, Ashley, stood nearby smirking. I stayed calm, though my heart was racing. I was 32 and had spent 8 years with Michael, thinking we had a real marriage. Now his mother was saying it was all fake. She had never liked me and had always tried to break us up. The courthouse has no record of your marriage, Diana continued with a smug look. I had a lawyer check. That means you have no right to this house or anything else. Pack your bags and leave. I turned to Michael, hoping he would defend me, remind his mother of our wedding. But he said nothing. He just stood there silent. Meanwhile, Ashley was already eyeing the house as if it were hers. Nothing to say. Diana taunted. You finally realize your little scam is over. Michael needs someone from a good family, not some nobody he met in a coffee shop. I walked over to a small desk in the corner, the only thing I had from my grandmother. Diana always hated it, saying it didn't belong in her son's fancy house. As she kept talking, I opened a hidden drawer and pulled out an old envelope. My hands were shaking, but I held it tight. You never belonged here, Diana went on. I knew it from the start. No family, no background. Just a pretty face that fooled my son. I took out an old birth certificate, yellowed with age, and looked at Diana. Actually, I said, you might want to read this. Diana grabbed the paper, still looking confident, but as she read, her face went pale. She stepped back, holding onto the sofa for support. This isn't real, she whispered. Oh, it's real, I said. My grandmother found it. She was a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in 1962, the night you gave birth. Michael stepped closer, worried. Mom, what's going on? Diana fell onto the sofa, the paper shaking in her hands. The confidence was gone. My grandmother never forgot that night, I continued. She helped deliver twins, a boy and a girl. But the records only showed one baby. She always wondered why. The room was silent. Even Ashley stopped smirking. I did some research. Back then, wealthy families sometimes gave away one twin to avoid shame. The records would say only one baby was born to protect their reputation. Stop, Diana whispered, but I kept going. The baby girl was adopted by a family in Ohio. She grew up and had a daughter. That daughter met a man named Michael, never knowing they were cousins. Michael's face turned pale. What are you saying? I'm saying I looked straight at Diana, that you and my mother are twins, which makes Michael and me first cousins, and our marriage illegal. The birth certificate fell from Diana's hands. Ashley stepped away from Michael like he was contagious. Her dream of marrying into his family had just fallen apart. Diana, who had spent years looking down on me, had just learned the truth. Her family and mine were the same. Michael swallowed hard. How long have you known? Long enough, I said. Long enough to see why you pulled away from me. Long enough to know the truth had to come out. I picked up the birth certificate and put it back in the envelope. Inside were more documents, adoption papers, hospital records, my grandmother's notes. You're right, Diana, I said softly. Michael and I were never legally married, but not for the reason you thought. The days after my revelation were filled with chaos. Diana ran out of the house that night, leaving behind the courthouse papers she had been so proud of. Michael locked himself in his home office, while Ashley quietly disappeared, realizing her dream of becoming Mrs. Harrison had vanished. I stayed in the guest room, sorting through the documents my grandmother had left me. They told a story that had been hidden for 60 years, hospital records, adoption papers, and the most shocking of all, the letters. Mom? Michael's voice startled me. I looked up to see him standing in the doorway, looking lost. We need to talk about what happens now. I held the letters in my lap, letters between my grandmother and the adoption agency showing how Diana had begged to keep her pregnancy a secret. There's nothing to talk about. Our marriage was never real. You're free to be with Ashley or whoever your mother chooses for you. He winced. That's not fair. I didn't know any of this. But you were ready to throw me out just because your mother said so, I reminded him. You stood there while she called me a gold digger and a fraud. Before he could reply, his phone buzzed. Diana's name popped up on his screen. He put it on speaker. Michael, darling, Diana's voice was calm, but I could hear the tension. I've spoken to our lawyer. We can handle this quietly. No one has to know about this mess. I laughed bitterly, still trying to hide the truth, Diana, just like you did 60 years ago. She lost her composure. You had no right to dig up the past. This affects our whole family's reputation. I'm thinking about family, I shot back. My mother spent her whole life wondering why she was abandoned, never knowing she had a twin brother living in luxury just a few states away. Michael sat heavily on the bed. Have you told her? I shook my head. Not yet. I wanted to give you and Diana a chance to do the right thing first. Diana's voice turned sharp. The right thing would be to destroy those documents and forget this ever happened. We'll arrange a quiet divorce. Say it was irreconcilable differences. Everything can go back to normal. Normal? I stood up, anger boiling inside me. Like separating twins at birth? Like treating your own niece like she was beneath you? Like pushing your son to leave his wife for a younger woman? Silence. I've already copied all the documents, I continued. Everything is digitized and stored safely. You can't hide this again, Diana. Her voice was weak now. What do you want? I want you to tell my mother the truth. She deserves to know where she came from. She deserves to meet her brother. And maybe then we can start healing this family. Michael reached for my hand, but I pulled away. His touch, once comforting, now felt wrong. I need time, Diana whispered. Time to figure out how to do this. You have 3 days, I said firmly. After that, I tell my mother everything. I ended the call, ignoring Diana's protests. Michael sat there, staring at the scattered papers. I'm so sorry, he finally said. For not standing up to her. For letting Ashley, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. It doesn't matter now, I said, gathering the documents. Our marriage was never real. We're cousins, Michael. First cousins. Everything we thought we had was built on a lie. Not everything, he whispered. Our feelings were real. Our life together. It was a house of cards. I cut him off. And your mother just knocked it down. I grabbed the envelope of documents. I'm staying with my sister for a few days. When I come back, I expect you to be gone. We need to end this cleanly, before anyone else gets hurt. As I packed my bag, I felt Michael watching me. We had spent 8 years building a life together, celebrating birthdays, holidays, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee. But now, every moment was tainted by the truth. Diana had wanted to push me out of her family. Instead, she had proven that I was part of it all along, just not in the way any of us had expected. 3 days passed like molasses. I stayed at my sister Emma's apartment, trying to process everything while fielding concerned calls from friends and family. I hadn't told my mother yet. That revelation deserved its own time and space. On the morning of the 3rd day, Diana called. I'll do it, she said, her voice rough as if she hadn't slept. I'll tell her everything. But I want to do it in person. We arranged to meet at my grandmother's old house, now my mother's home. It seemed fitting. The place where I first discovered the truth would be where the final secrets were revealed. When I arrived, my mother was in the garden, tending to her roses. She looked up as I approached, her smile faltering when she saw Diana behind me. Mom, I said softly, there's something you need to know. What followed was 2 hours of tears, anger, and long-buried truths. Diana, stripped of her usual arrogance, told the story of a scared 19-year-old girl from a prominent family, forced to give up one of her twins to avoid scandal. My mother listened in stunned silence as her origin story was finally revealed. I thought about you every day, Diana whispered, reaching for my mother's hand. Every birthday, every Christmas, I wondered where you were, if you were happy. You could have found me, my mother replied, her voice trembling. You've known who I was since Michael started dating my daughter. 8 years, Diana. 8 years you've looked me in the eye at family gatherings, knowing I was your sister. I was a coward, Diana admitted. The longer I waited, the harder it became. And then when Michael and Olivia married, she trailed off, shame coloring her features. You tried to drive me away. I finished for her. Because every time you saw me with Michael, it reminded you of what you've done. Diana nodded, tears streaming down her face. I thought if I could just separate you two, the guilt would stop. But I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. My mother stood up, pacing the familiar garden path. I need time to process this, my whole life, everything I thought I knew about myself. Take all the time you need, Diana said quietly. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, either of you. As Diana left, my mother and I sat in the garden, holding each other and crying for all the years lost, all the pain caused by secrets and shame. 2 months later, life had settled into a new normal. Michael and I filed for an annulment, citing our previously unknown blood relationship. He moved to Seattle for a fresh start while I stayed in our old house. Diana signed it over to me as part of her attempt at making amends. My mother and Diana began the slow process of building a relationship. They started with weekly coffee meetings, sharing stories and photographs, piecing together their separate lives. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they cried, but slowly, surely they began to heal. One evening, as I sat on my porch watching the sunset, Diana's car pulled into my driveway. She walked up hesitantly, carrying a small box. These belong to you, she said, placing it beside me. Inside were photo albums, baby pictures of my mother that Diana had kept hidden all these years. I thought maybe you could share them with her, make copies, start filling in the blanks. I nodded, touched by the gesture. Thank you. She turned to leave, then paused. Olivia? I know it doesn't make up for anything, but I truly am sorry. Not just for the recent past, but for all of it. You and Michael, you deserve better. We all did, I replied softly. But maybe now we can build something better. Something honest. As I watched her drive away, I opened one of the albums. A photo slipped out, twin baby girls, just hours old, sleeping peacefully side by side. On the back, in faded ink, were their names and a simple message, my beautiful daughters. May you find each other someday. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes it destroys the life you thought you had. But sometimes, like a forest after a fire, what grows back is stronger, healthier, and more beautiful than what was there before. Diana, my mother, and I were learning this together, one day at a time. Our family tree had been violently shaken, but its roots ran deeper than any of us had known. And from those roots, something new and unexpected was beginning to grow.